welcome to Filmmakers Focus. My name's Lucy Norris, and we're here at a downtown park in Brooklyn. Hi, I'm Lucy Norris, and we are here with Heather Height, who is a comedian and writer and also talk show host. We have so much going on there. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on Filmmakers Focus. I don't make films, and I was very clear about that, but he was like, it's all right, don't worry about it.
Well, we heard a lot of good things about you, so that's why we wanted you on the show. So let's start off with, how did you get started in this career that you do?
Well, I actually was dating a comic. And the stupid thing about it was he would always, like, he'd run stuff by me, and then he would say, don't write it, I have an idea. And he explained our relationship as like if George Carlin lived with, Richard Pryor, and he was out doing comedy all night and then had to come home to Richard Pryor. But neither of us are that funny or talented. It was just an analogy that he used,
So you decided to move him out the way and let's get started in the career by yourself, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I was so involved in, because when you're a girlfriend and you're a tag-along, then you're there all the time. I was at open mics, and I knew people in the industry, and so I eventually just had to try it myself.
Now, a lot of people may have heard of your name or heard of you from radio as well, because you have your own show. So tell us a bit more about the show.
Well, I'm on two podcasts. The one is called Hate Speech Radio, which is a tongue-in-cheeky kind of name. Not that we're not racist and hateful, but we don't not. It's my husband's project, and he started it, and the name is an homage to people who are fired because of what they say, and the affront to freedom of speech, and things being tagged as hate speech when it's supposed to be comedy or taken as a joke, not
fully.
Yeah. And we were recognized by Talkers Magazine, which is an industry magazine for radio, 4 years in a row.
Wow.
On a list called the Frontier 50, which is a list of podcasters, including, Rush Limbaugh and people who are actually, known other than us.
That's incredible.
I don't know how it happened. I think they like the name. They're like, oh, this is subversive and weird. We'll put this on here.
Well, and it's because it's a good show. I've listened to it. It's great. It's very funny. Now, as well as being the comedian and the show host, you're also a writer. So I'm guessing, is that writing your own stand-up comic or stand-up comedy? There you go. Is there other stuff that you write?
Just writing stand-up comedy is kind of a given, because I really can't afford writers yet. When I get further along and lazier and richer. But the things that I write that I have the most fun with are like sex advice articles. And
yes, because I heard you're a sex expert as well. That's what I Googled.
We're all sex experts.
So that's what you also...
Yeah, and the coupling of sex and comedy, dates back to like vaudeville, when they threw some schmuck up there between strippers and, yeah, and then he got things thrown at them, it was a breakup between strippers and, so it seems to go hand in hand, and through, I have my other talk show, which is it's a comedic, like, sex talk show and sexual health, and we cover everything from sexuality issues and political issues to, like, just how to, do certain sex acts that I don't know if I'm allowed to mention on the show. So, and we try to be informative. I've had like stars of the gay porn industry, stunning men, absolutely unattainable, stunning men, and I've had like Keith Caputo, who was the lead singer of Life of Agony, who actually underwent a sex change and decided he wanted to be a woman, and I've had him on the show, and so it covers like this really wide range. I have a lot of penthouse models on the show, and
well, you've got a whole wide range of audiences there.
And it just, a lot of those girls will go on other comedy, like Howard Stern or Opie and Anthony. So they all just seem to go together. Sex and comedy goes hand in hand. They both make you feel good in the same way, stimulate the same part of the brain, you know.
Well, what I was going to ask, as a female comedian, have you found any challenges? Do you think that it's harder as a female to go into the world of comedy?
In a way it is. I think that your own perception kind of dictates how hard things are. I know that, like, I don't go into a situation thinking, oh, I'm a female comic and, you know, I'm going to get the shitty end of the stick. I don't know.
The bad end of the stick. That's okay.
The bad one. So I think that there's times when I have had people, it's harder to be, I guess, respected in some ways, because for some reason there's this whole movement going on about women not being funny, and it doesn't really make any sense. I mean, it's Burns and Allen. Gracie Allen was the funny one.
Right,
George Burns would be the first person to say so. Lucille Ball had her own show. Carol Burnett was brilliant. There's, a large history of
very funny women.
Very funny, talented women. Right. And it's the Phyllis Diller, who I started comedy at 37, and so did she. And the trend with female comics, I think, would happen that way because we would be home and have our kids, and then, like, well, what am I going to do with my life now? I'm going to be a stand-up comic.
Well, yes, because you have 4 children, right?
Yes,
4 children. She's a stand-up comic. She's a writer. She does it all. She's like Superwoman here. Who's your influence coming in at, a later age into comedy? Who have you been influenced by? The women that you've just mentioned, or is there one comedian in particular?
My very first, introduction to a stand-up comic was on the very first episode of Saturday Night Live, and George Carlin hosted the first episode. And I was 6, but I was babysat by my aunts and uncles who were teenagers, so my mom had a nighttime job, and I watched Saturday Night Live and Monty Python, things that I didn't relate to the other kids. I'd go, Jumbo Shrimp, and they're like, what? We're learning our ABCs here. Go finger paint. So George Carlin was not just a comic. He was one of the first that was a social commentator.
Right.
And he actually won a lawsuit for, I think it was public lewdness, for cursing on stage. And I watched recently over again his very first HBO special, where HBO makes a statement in the beginning about how they support this as an art. And they mention him being, taken to court for the public lewdness or, whatever offensive thing he said. And then he proceeds to go on stage and tell fart jokes. But it was an art. That was the first time it was he's up there
doing it,
dictating and giving you this commentary on where society is and telling us all pretty much how stupid we are, and
He did it in such a good way.
I've seen him live at shows where the whole audience, and if you watch him, there's long silences where people are just riveted on what he's saying, and he's not necessarily being funny. He's just doing a dissertation.
Yeah.
And then, the fart jokes again. So he's there's nothing funnier than that,
Well, no, I completely agree with you. I think that he was a great comedian. Now, before we go, where can people hear you or see you?
My 2 radio shows are both on brickhouseradio.com and Brickhouse Radio Live on I forget what it's called, Stickcam.
There we go.
And I am at heatherheight.com. I'm Heather Height all over the freaking place.
She is. I Googled her and she was there.
If you Google me, you get 2 pages of me, and then you get the average height of the heather plant and Heather Locklear's height. So once you get to the 3rd page,
then don't bother going any further. That's
it. If you want to know that information, you're going to Scotland and you're I want to roll down a hill of heather. I'd like to know how high it is. Then you could do that.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you on the show. Oh, but one last question.
Oh.
This is the last one.
No problem.
Have you ever been in any films? That's what I was going to ask, because we are on Filmmakers Focus.
Absolutely.
So
have just started like delving into extra work.
Okay.
And my very first one was this past fall, and I was so lucky to be an extra on this set with Upright Citizens Brigade members who were doing a pilot for a show called Disgusting Bachelors, and it's just I think they're trying to pitch it to Comedy Central, but it was such a positive experience, which I don't think is indicative of doing extra work.
Right.
And because I think my hair matched the paint, I was very central to a lot of shots. And I even got to turn my head and have my profile scene, which is, really up there in the echelon of extras.
You should be getting paid more when you get the profile of the thing. That's when the money starts going.
A friend of mine, his name's Angry Bob, and he was on Bored to Death on HBO, and he was like, well, that means that you were a featured extra. And I was like, oh, is that a thing? He goes, no, but you could put that on something. It sounds like a thing. So I was a featured extra on an Upright Citizens Brigade production.
And keep your eye out, because you may see her, but you'll definitely see her at any of her upcoming shows. And please check out her website, www.heatherheight.com. That's right. Okay, thank you so much. And once again, my name's Lucy Norris, and this is Filmmakers Focus.